Wang Geng traveled through the world of cultivating immortals with the absurd mirror, and was able to replicate all objects in the world. With this treasure, he easily joined the local sect. When he was about to rely on the big tree to showcase his grand plan, he was surprised to hear that the sect was called the Covering Sect. There were not only Nangong Wan and Qiong Lao Guai in the sect, but also the moon-covering twin princes. What a world of mortals cultivating immortals. I shouldn't be a pig's foot, but now I have become a supporting role. Keywords of the novel. I, a mortal cultivator, have the absurd mirror without a pop-up window. I, a mortal cultivator, have the absurd mirror. Download the complete set of TXT, and read the latest chapter on the absurd mirror. Chapter 1. Entering the mortal world, minor changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Entering the mortal world, minor changes. U states moon-covering sect. Wang Geng is a new disciple of the outer sect during the Qi refining period of the moon-covering sect. He is currently lying in the stone house under the sect, with a bitter taste in his mouth. He was not originally from this world. He traveled to his current body 5 years ago when he was 10 years old and had a first level of cultivation during his Qi refining period. As the last cultivator of a declining small immortal family, he was fortunate enough to inherit a storage bag, 3 talismans, 5 low-level spirit stones, and a basic technique jade slip of the thick soil technique, complete set of 13 layers of technique mnemonics, passed down from the family, and he possesses both soil and gold attributes of spiritual roots, with a decent speed of refining Qi. Although he aspires to become an immortal and attain enlightenment, if he only relies on his meager family background, Wang Geng's cultivation level is likely to stay in the Qi refining or foundation building period for his entire life. After all, there are not enough spiritual stones to talk about cultivation. Fortunately, when Wang Geng traveled across the country, he carried a mysterious treasure called the absurd mirror with him. The absurd mirror is a copper ancient mirror virtual image that exists in the sea of consciousness, and no one except Wang Geng can perceive it. The lower half of it features an antique mirror base and surface, only the size of a palm, while the upper half features a heterogeneous toad with a wide-open mouth facing upwards, the size of a fist. The absurd mirror can replicate all items, which will appear in Wang Geng's storage bag or any designated place in front of him. The cost is that a portion of the spirit stones in the storage bag will disappear, and the quantity is exactly 1/10 of the value of the copied item. The value of the item is determined by the absurd mirror itself. Just as Wang Geng was pleasantly preparing to treat the absurd mirror as a treasure trove for unlimited cultivation resources, he realized that it could not be infinitely replicated, but had 6 major limitations. 1. The absurd mirror can only replicate unconscious dead objects or spiritual objects that have not yet been born. 2. The same item can only be copied once. 3. The absurd mirror can only replicate unclaimed items that Wang Geng can see with the naked eye, or owned items that can be touched by hand. 4. The treasure of Qi in the plane cannot be replicated. 5. When copying an item, if the spirit stone on the body is less than 1/10 of the value of the copied item, the copying fails and all the spirit stones on the body disappear. 6. The absurd mirror can add new comments at any time. In the end, although Wang Geng did not have unlimited cultivation resources, he also relied on the absurd mirror to replicate divine powers and had enough pills for cultivation. Therefore, in just 5 years, he cultivated to the 9th level of the Qi refining period and obtained the qualification to join the local cultivation sect, the Moonlight Sect. After joining the Moon-Covering Sect, Wang Geng was surprised to hear 4 things. 1. There are several ancestors of the Golden Elixir period in the sect, among whom 3 are Qiong Guai, Nangong Wan, and Nishang Fairy. 2. There are 2 powerful senior sisters in the same sect during the Qi refining period, and their nicknames are Moon-Covering Double Jiao. 3. The Muyue sect is located in the state of Yu, and there are 7 major Xuxian sects in the Xuxian realm of Yu, namely the Muyue sect, Spirit Beast Mountain, Giant Sword sect, Huadao Fortress, Qingshu Gate, Huangfeng Valley, and Tianke Fortress. 4. 3 years later, the blood trial of the Yu Kingdom is about to begin, and the sect is already recruiting disciples for the trial. The world of mortals cultivating immortals. Old Demon Han. I came here to be a pig's foot. Why did I suddenly become a supporting role? This is the first scene of the book. At this moment, Wang Geng was lying on the stone bed, carefully recalling the plot of the mortal cultivation legend. Thinking of the disaster star Han Laomua in the book, how could he not feel bitter in his heart? After a long struggle, Wang Geng suddenly gritted his teeth and got up with a growl. He has a rebellious little bottle, and I have an absurd mirror. He can bully the weak with the help of the rebellious little bottle, so I can't use the absurd mirror to dominate this world. Who is afraid of who? No one can stop me from becoming the Taoist master. After making up his mind, Wang Geng recalled the plot of ordinary people while secretly pondering where there were opportunities to take advantage of and when to avoid risks. Finally, he came up with several principles. 1. Most of Han Laomua's chances are small probability events, with very few opportunities available for borrowing, but there are some high probability events that can be planned in advance. For example, when the demon invaded the state of you, he could find the great movement order found in the mine and the 5-colored spirit pill under the nearby bones in advance to copy the absurd mirror, but the original object should be left for Han Laomua. The great movement order allows you to go to the chaotic star sea, where there are countless monster resources. After building the foundation, if Wang Geng has the strength, he can go to kill demons, take pills, refine pills, and continue practicing until the later stage of the golden pill. And the 5-colored spirit pill is a divine medicine that can enhance the spiritual root qualification, and it must not be missed. 2. Try not to touch the main techniques and treasures that Han Laomua will obtain in the future, so as not to hinder his path to heaven. After all, he will become the master of time in the future. If it affects his foundation, who knows if one day he will suddenly appear to settle accounts with Wang Geng, so it is easy not to offend him. 3. The world of cultivating immortals is incredibly vast, not just the opportunities encountered by Han Laomua. He can benefit from the high probability events in the original plot, but he also needs to search for unknown opportunities in his daily life. After all, with the absurd mirror, he will not have fewer treasures in the future than Han Laomua. After thinking about his future path, Wang Geng suddenly felt that his morale had improved significantly. Next, he began to prepare for the blood trial in 3 years in the mortal world, except for the cultivators of the heavenly spirit root. Other cultivators use a lot of foundation building pills when trying to build foundations. These things are not only expensive, but also very rare, and are basically monopolized by the 7 major sects of the U state. As a spiritual root with 2 attributes of earth and gold, Wang Geng will need no less than 3 or 4 foundation building pills to build a 100% foundation in the future. You can't expect the sect to issue so many foundation building pills. Only by participating in the blood test when the time comes, get around 20 spiritual herbs and herbs in the forbidden area, replicate them again, and after that, you can exchange them for 4 or 5 foundation building pills from the sect. Once you replicate them again, you will have 8 or 9 foundation building pills, which will be a small deal. For this, he needs to prepare a sufficient number of spirit stones. Firstly, he needs to replicate the spirit grass in the forbidden area. Secondly, he needs to have enough means to protect himself in the forbidden area, such as buying 1 or 2 top-level magical tools, 2 or 3 powerful talismans, etc. In addition, he also needs to diligently practice and improve his cultivation in the past 3 years. After all, using the 9-layer technique to go to the blood forbidden area is undoubtedly a way to die, and cultivation requires a lot of spiritual stones. Below, Wang Geng took out all his belongings from the storage bag. The valuable items included 50 low-level spirit stones, 2 low-level flying swords, 1 low-level flying magic tool, and about 10 low-level talismans. Among them, 20 spirit stones, 1 inferior flying sword, and 1 inferior flying magic tool were issued by the sect, and they were added to the moon covering sect. Wang Geng's wealth is so limited. Firstly, most of the spiritual stones he obtained earlier were purchased as elixirs for cultivation. Secondly, his previous cultivation level was low and he was isolated. He was still in a small place and only dared to copy spiritual stones and a few low-level talismans. Middle and high-level talismans and magical tools were not even able to be copied, and even if they were copied, they could not be sold. Moreover, it was easy to make people envious. If someone were to kill and seize treasures for him again, it would not be worth the loss. Now it's different. After joining the Moon Covering Sect, there are tens of thousands of disciples at the same level, and he doesn't stand out among them, and there are also nearly 1,000 cultivators in Zhongmenfang City who shuttle day and night shopping inside. If they copy some medium and high level talismans and artifacts to trade inside, as long as they pay attention to selling in different stores and pay attention to the time interval between sales, no one will notice him as a small shrimp afterwards. Wang Geng spent half of his time meditating and refining gas, while the other half traveled back and forth to the market and traded items in the market. Half a year later, he gained a fortune of over 1,000 spirit stones. 1 year later, he broke through to the 10th level and bought a top-level defense artifact called the Silver Shield. In addition, there were nearly 1,000 spirit stones in his storage bag. 2 years later, his cultivation had reached the 11th level, and he had also purchased a top-level attack weapon, the Blood Flame Blade, and a powerful talisman. Just as Wang Geng was still preparing carefully, the head of the sect's external affairs, He Xianzi, a late master of foundation construction, suddenly called him to the Foreign Affairs Hall and handed him a beautiful job. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Preparation for Trial. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Preparation for Trial. This is a large hall called Frost Blossom, located on the main peak of the Moon Covering Sect. The owner of the hall is a middle-aged beautiful woman who cannot tell the depth of her cultivation. When he first arrived, Wang Geng didn't know why He Xianzi brought him here. It was not until the latter referred to the beautiful woman in the hall as Cui Shibua, and discussed his relationship as a dual cultivator with this Cui Shibua, that Wang Geng understood that he had come for a blind date. Today the Yu sect originated from the Tianhuan sect of the Tianluo kingdom in its early years. The sect has the authentic double cultivation technique inherited from the Hehuan sect. This technique can not only improve the speed of qi cultivation for double cultivators, but also help break through the bottleneck of foundation building. Therefore, anyone among the disciples of the Yu sect who still wants to build foundations and pills wants to take this shortcut. However, not all disciples are qualified to practice this dual cultivation technique, as this technique is only taught to female disciples of our sect who have reached the 11th level of cultivation. If male disciples want to practice this skill, they can only be favored by female disciples of the inner sect and selected as dual cultivators. This Cui Shizu has 2 granddaughters who have reached the 11th level of the qi refining stage and have been taught the art of dual cultivation by the sect. However, they have been choosing for a long time and cannot find a suitable dual cultivation couple, which is why today's blind date is taking place. As for why Wang Geng was found, it is necessary to focus on it. Wang Geng is 17 years old this year. He was born with a face as beautiful as a crown jewel, a face more beautiful than Pannon, a tall and upright figure, and an outstanding temperament. He is truly a peerless beautiful man. It is precisely because of her outstanding appearance that she was recommended by He Xianzi to participate in this blind date. I carefully selected this child, named Wang Geng. He is 17 years old and a person who is dedicated to hard work. When he first started, he only had 9 levels of cultivation, but now he has reached 11 levels. I heard that he has been devoted to cultivation for 2 years and has never provoked any other female disciples. He can be said to be an honest and steady person. As for his appearance, even if I don't mention it, you can tell it at a glance when you are old. The King Geng praised by He Xianzi is rare on the earth and difficult to find in the sky, but it is mostly true. You've done your best this time, Wang Geng. Go to the side hall on the left and meet my 2 granddaughters, so you don't have to be here with us. Seeing the encouraging gaze of Master He, Wang Geng bowed and bid farewell to the 2 predecessors, heading towards the left side hall. When I walked into the side hall 7 or 8 times, I found only a young girl sitting inside. This woman is 17 or 18 years old and looks more delicate than flowers. She is truly a first-class beauty, but her only flaw is that her eyes are slightly sharp, her face is full of nitpicking, and her every move is slightly harsh. Don't look for it. My sister doesn't have the heart to find a double cultivator yet, so she left long ago. There's only this fairy here. Wang Geng saw that there was only one person here and thought that the other was hiding somewhere in advance, so he instinctively scanned around with his eyes. He didn't expect to be noticed by the girl sitting there, so he quickly explained. I heard there were 2 people here, so I instinctively searched for them, but there was no other meaning. You look very handsome, but you deserve me. My cultivation is a bit low, but I can make do with it. Alright, it's you. From now on, we'll be a double cultivator. Whatever I say in the future will be right. Whatever I ask you to do, even if it's difficult, I have to complete it. In short, I'm the heavenly fairy, and I'm the eldest. I'm Cui Yueling, the sister of the famous moon covering double pride in the sect. Ah. This Cui Yueling is obviously a spoiled young lady, but for the sake of the double cultivation technique, Wang Geng thinks he can endure it for a while, so Wang Geng became the double monk couple of the younger sister in the double pride of covering the moon. There are several 2-story independent stone buildings behind the Luhua Hall. In the afternoon of that day, Wang Geng and Cui Yueling formed a double cultivation couple in the back stone tower under the witness of Cui Zushi. In the evening, the 2 of them tried the double cultivation technique for the first time. The taste of it cannot be described in detail, but in the following days, Wang Geng found that the speed of refining qi had suddenly increased by a significant amount, which made him extremely happy. You should know that cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will retreat. Any slight increase in cultivation speed can surpass a large number of cultivators of the same level, which may bring unexpected gains in the future. Afterwards, Wang Geng did not return to his residence, but temporarily stayed in the stone building behind the Lu Hua Hall, and every 3 to 5 days, Cui Yueling will come to double cultivate with Wang Geng. As contact increased, Wang Geng found that this woman was extremely difficult to get along with. She always looked aloof and would easily lose her temper if she didn't like it. She couldn't tolerate Wang Geng's refusal at all, but instead had a typical and obedient personality. People's hearts are made of flesh. If you treat us like slaves, we don't have to sincerely treat you. Afterwards, Wang Geng's stubborn temper also rose, appearing silent on the surface when the other party got angry, but secretly ignoring it at all. If it weren't for the rich spiritual energy here far surpassing Wang Geng's own residence, and the benefits of double cultivation, he would probably have returned to his residence long ago and stopped paying attention to this woman later. When Cui Yueling noticed Wang Geng's non-violent and uncooperative attitude, she also ignored him in a fit of anger and continued to live as a double monk every 3 to 5 days. The double cultivation technique is indeed miraculous and can greatly enhance one's cultivation level. 10 months later, Wang Geng and Cui Yueling successively broke through to the 12th level realm. At this moment, Wang Geng saw the other one of the double prides of the moon for the first time. The elder sister of the double pride of the hidden moon is called Cui Yefeng. With self-cultivation, she has now reached the 12th level of realm, and her qualifications are slightly better than her younger sister Cui Yueling. This is also why the other party is not in a hurry to find a double cultivator couple. At first, Wang Geng thought that Cui Yefeng was the Duobao girl who was ambushed and killed by a madman named Feng Yu in the forbidden area. However, now Cui Yueling has also reached 12 levels of realm, and both of them have replica magic tools such as the Qingning mirror and the crystal ball given by Cui Zushi. Therefore, Wang Geng doesn't know which one is actually Duobao girl. Fortunately, Wang Geng did not have any deep feelings with them, so he was too lazy to meddle in their affairs. 1 month later, Wang Geng finally bought a long sought-after green feather fan talisman in Zhongmenfang City, and finally prepared himself fully for the Forbidden Area trial trip. On this day, Wang Geng was inspecting the treasures in the storage bag in the stone building behind the Lu Hua Hall: blood flame blade, silver shield, 2 flaming yang needle talisman treasures, 2 blue feather fan talisman treasures, 200 various middle and low-level talismans, 1,000 low-level spirit stones, should be enough to use. The original items of blood flame blade and silver light shield were sold by Wang Geng to buy talismans, leaving only replicas. Wang Geng kept both of the more powerful talismans, and he valued Xiao Ming'er immensely. An extra talisman would give him more hope of saving his life. The next step is how to register for the blood ban trial. Just as he was thinking about how to register, a faint sound of footsteps suddenly rang out outside the room, and then Cui Yueling pushed the door open and walked in. My sister and I are going to participate in the blood ban trial, and you are also going with us. Cui Yueling finished speaking coldly and threw away a bell-shaped magical tool. Is this solved? Wang Geng glanced at the departing figure of the opponent, but did not respond. Instead, he held the bell-shaped magical tool in his hand, and upon closer inspection, he found it to be a top-level defense tool. As long as it was sacrificed above his head, it would release a layer of shield to protect Wang Geng's entire body. It was extremely powerful and airtight, making it truly a defense treasure. It seems that I still have some use for myself. The other party doesn't want me to die early, so why don't we remind them in advance? Let her know that there are so many experts in the blood ban trial, and they are extremely dangerous. Only those who adhere to the Tao can survive. Regardless of whether Cui Yueling is a precious woman or not, Wang Geng just wanted to repay her for giving her such a top-notch treasure today, otherwise she would feel guilty in her heart in the blink of an eye. It was time for the blood ban trial on this day. Many disciples of the Moon Covering Sect who participated in the trial gathered together, looking like more than 30 people. The Moon Covering Sect is indeed a sect that values appearance. Among its disciples, the women are very beautiful and the men are handsome. Not long after, 5 founding uncles accompanied a charming woman dressed as a young woman and flew to the side of many trial disciples. Wang Geng knew that the woman in front of him was the founder of the Golden Dan period, the Qiong fairy, led by the Moon Covering Sect. This time afterwards, the 5 master uncles each spoke to the disciples of the trial, informing them of some rules related to the blood forbidden trial. They then issued a jade slip that recorded many forbidden area information for the disciples to check on the way. Finally, the Qiong fairy released the iconic flying treasure of the Moon Covering Sect, the Heavenly Moon Divine Boat. After many trial disciples boarded the divine boat, a huge protective light shield lit up on the boat, and then rose up to escape towards the west. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Entering Forbidden Areas. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Entering Forbidden Areas. The Tianyue Divine Boat is extremely fast and huge, with nearly 40 people sitting on it without appearing crowded. After flying into the sky, Wang Geng wanted to observe which one on the boat was Nangong, but he saw a young girl with a light veil covering her face standing up at the front and walking to the side of the Qiong fairy with a light smile, talking to the latter. The nearby stewards also bowed respectfully when they saw the girl. Wang Geng knew that the masked girl was Nangong, so he took it for granted that several senior builders of the foundation period had acted in such a way. The other disciples of the Moon Covering Sect were somewhat surprised when they saw this situation, so they began to mutter softly. At this moment, the Qiong fairy also noticed the commotion of the trial disciples and suddenly pointed to Nangong, saying to the trial disciples on the boat, "Everyone, pay attention and listen carefully. The person in front of you is Nangong, another founder of the Golden Elixir period of our Moon Covering Sect. Why did your Nangong master appear here? Don't inquire too much, and don't spread it outside. Just remember to enter the blood forbidden area. If the distance is not too far, you all need to find your Nangong master as soon as possible and follow her command. Before entering the forbidden area, the seniors of the Digital Foundation period will apply attraction technique to each disciple in the sect. Within a few days of entering the forbidden area, the 2 disciples in the sect can feel each other's existence as long as they are within a certain distance." Upon hearing the words of the Qiong fairy, all the trial disciples nodded and said yes, but privately they couldn't help but whisper, not understanding how this Nangong master revealed his cultivation during the Qi refining period. Wang Geng certainly knew that this was because the other party had practiced the pure maiden reincarnation technique, but at this moment he could only pretend not to understand. Seeing the obedient appearance of the trial disciples, the Qiong fairy nodded in satisfaction and turned her head to continue whispering to Nangong. Then Wang Geng turned his head and looked at the sisters who were sitting beside him. When you enter the blood forbidden area, there are many experts inside. You also need to be careful, especially pay attention to the 2 people in Huangfeng Valley. One is a young man with slightly black skin, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. He appears honest on the surface, but behind the scenes, he is ruthless and his strength should not be lower than yours. The other is an old man, looking at his low cultivation and smooth tongue, but he is the most difficult to deal with, and his strength is still above all disciples in the Qi refining period. Seeing that they were about to arrive at the forbidden area in a day or two, Huang Fenggu would arrive first, afraid of being detected by the old ghost. Therefore, Wang Geng decided to remind the moon-covering twin beauties on the divine boat, there are still such people in Huangfeng Valley. I will definitely find an opportunity to meet them for a while. Wang Geng had intended to kindly remind the two of them, but he didn't expect it to arouse Cui Yefeng's competitiveness and make him even more eager to fight against them. Just save your life. Both of our sisters have several powerful magic weapons from our ancestors. You can't worry about us. When we get to the valley, it should be someone else who is afraid of our sisters. Why should we hide from others when we get to your mouth? It's a shame for our sisters. Cui Yueling spoke of Wang Geng with a look of disgust on her face. Since birth, the double pride of the moon has been following a founder of the Jidan period and has developed a habit of being arrogant. They believe that they are invincible in the world and do not consider any cultivators of the same level. However, they do not know that there is a strong hand in the strong, nor do they know that praying mantises catch cicadas, and yellow sparrows are behind the wicked have their own fate, and when they see that many words are useless, Wang Geng no longer advises them. 2 days later, the moon-covering divine boat arrived at a barren mountain in the northwest of Jianzhou. After landing on the barren mountain, the members of the moon-covering sect discovered that 2 groups of people had already arrived on the mountain. One group of people mostly wore yellow shirts, who were from Huangfeng Valley, while the other group were mostly Taoists and disciples of the Qingshu sect. Among the 2 groups of people, there were 3 golden core ancestors talking, and when the Nishang fairy saw the 3, she smiled and greeted them. Then, one of the short-haired old monsters wearing a patched blue shirt disappeared out of thin air just as the disciples of the moon-covering sect were unsure. Someone who knew the Qiong old monster said, "The one who just left is also a founder of our moon-covering sect, and he is also a late cultivator of the golden elixir. He may enter the Yuaning period at any time." Upon hearing this person's words, the disciples exclaimed with envy. However, Wang Geng knew that this Qiong old monster was worried about something wrong with Nangong Wan and accompanied him for a walk. Just now, Qiong old monster should have also made a bet with Li Huayuan from Huangfeng Valley and Fuyunzi from Qingshu Gate on the amount of spiritual herbs and elixirs that the 3 disciples finally received. After the disciples of the moon-covering sect settled down, many male disciples from Huangfeng Valley and Qingshu sect turned their gaze to the beautiful scenery here. However, many female disciples of the moon-covering sect teased the male disciples of both factions, causing them to blush and feel embarrassed. However, when they saw this, they couldn't help but smirk incessantly. This is not that they are naturally promiscuous, but that they all practice seductive skills and inadvertently show their seductive demeanor. Taking advantage of the chaos among the 3 parties, Wang Geng casually glanced towards the side of Huangfeng Valley and searched for 2 figures. Sure enough, both Han Li and Xiang Zhili were present. The former just stays quietly in place, seemingly honest, while the latter jumps up and down among many young disciples of Huangfeng Valley and Qingshu sect, spitting and flying wildly. These 2 monsters. Seeing the true faces of the 2, Wang Geng secretly remembered them in his heart, which inevitably aroused their suspicion. He then turned his gaze to another place. In the following half-day, people from Spirit Beast Mountain, Huadao Fortress, Giant Sword Gate, and Tiancai Fortress also arrived one after another. Wang Geng began to constantly scrutinize the trial disciples of these sects, searching for the figures of those powerful figures in his memory. After finding them, he remembered them one by one and warned himself to be careful when entering the forbidden area. Although he had 4 top-notch magical tools and 4 powerful talismans to protect himself, Wang Geng still dared not show any carelessness. After all, no matter how capable one is, they are afraid of sneak attacks from behind. That precious woman and the giant swordsman of the Giant Sword sect were inadvertently attacked and killed by Feng Yu and Han Laomao. Moreover, among these people, there are monsters like Xiang Zhili and Nangong Wan. At this point, the 7 sects have arrived together, and the ancestors of each sect's golden elixir period have gathered their disciples and flew them towards a certain point at the border of Yuanwu Kingdom. Several hours later, they all landed in front of a barren lush slope. Wang Geng knew that the forbidden area had arrived afterwards. The plot remained the same as the original work, the various sects of the Jidan period. Ancestors began to constantly explore, until the moment when the prohibition of the forbidden area significantly weakened. The 7 Jidan period ancestors finally took action together for a moment: a silver ruler, a blue flying sword, a pink ribbon, a dragon-shaped cane, a black giant sword, a red long sword, and a yellow seal complemented each other as they charged towards the forbidden wind wall, and the forbidden area wind wall also transformed into countless blue wind blades to resist the joint attack of the various Jidan cultivators at the same time. Various waves of air overturned the river and the sea, and the roar was earth-shattering at this moment. Many disciples had already formed 7 rows behind the 7 people. Looking at the shocking scene before them, they couldn't help but be stunned and silent. This fierce battle lasted for 3 or 4 hours. Only after sweating profusely from the 7 ancestors, did they create a circular passage about 10 feet high on the wind wall of the forbidden area. At this moment, Fuyunzi hurriedly said, "All disciples, hurry forward. We can't hold on for long." At this point, the disciples of the 7 sects had already disrupted the order, and upon hearing the words, they dared not neglect them. They quickly crossed their weapons and flew into the passage. At this moment, everyone remained silent. Everyone knew that after entering the forbidden area, everyone would be enemies of life and death. Only the strongest and most cunning individuals could survive. The passage was not long, only about 20 zhang away. In the blink of an eye, Wang Geng flew to the end, and then suddenly felt a whirlwind, as if he had fallen into an bottomless pit, and then disappeared in place. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Entry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Entry. I feel dizzy. After landing, Wang Geng remained deaf and dizzy for a certain period of time, so he didn't dare to neglect and immediately sacrificed the bell-shaped magical tool on his head. The danger in the forbidden area is extremely great. Not only are there disciples from other sects, but there are also many strange monsters that already exist. If they are unlucky enough to fall by their side or be attacked, it would not be unjustified. After the dizziness subsided, Wang Geng released his divine sense and began to inquire about the situation around him. Underneath and behind is a vast expanse of grass, with a small mountain in front of you. There are various strange plants growing in front and behind, indicating that this place is basically in a long-term isolation from the outside world. After using his divine sense to detect no abnormalities, Wang Geng carefully searched again with his naked eye and only then breathed a sigh of relief. Divine sense exploration cannot guarantee accuracy 100%, because cultivators all know the technique of restraining qi. As long as they hide, they can avoid divine sense exploration. It is better to use a dual approach to reduce the chance of making mistakes. Holding the jade slips issued by the sect, Wang Geng kept searching, hoping to find his current position by relying on the small mountain in front of him. As a result, Wang Geng found that the area under his feet was the northwest periphery of the forbidden area. After finding the location, Wang Geng searched for any nearby spiritual medicine or herb markers. I immediately discovered that the nearest spiritual medicine marker was only not far from here. Now everyone has just entered the forbidden area and is busy going to the nearest place to pick elixirs. It is expected that the outskirts will still be very safe at this time. Although he thought so, Wang Geng still carefully grabbed the bell-shaped artifact with his left hand before heading in a certain direction. Wang Geng didn't use the technique of pulling a trap to sense if there were any fellow disciples nearby, nor did he expect to meet them so quickly. He had a ridiculous mirror in his hand, so he must try to pick and replicate as many spiritual medicines as possible while there was no one around. This is an unnamed cliff, covered with various one-person-tall shrubs and legless artemisia, with 4 or 5 scorching sunflowers blooming by the edge. Suddenly seeing the elixir did not make Wang Geng lose his composure. He first released his divine sense and carefully searched within 100 meters around him. After discovering no movement, he stood at a high point and looked around until it was confirmed that there were no signs of human habitation or flocks of birds, beasts, and insects around him. Only then did he cautiously walk to the edge and pick 3 old enough scorching flowers. After all the copies were completed, I took out a jade box specifically for storing spiritual herbs from the storage bag. Just as I was about to put the spiritual herbs into the jade box, my heart suddenly moved. I took out another jade box, put the original 3 spiritual herbs into one jade box, and then put the copied spiritual herbs into another jade box to store. The reason why they are not packed in the same jade box is because they are afraid of being noticed by others. The petals of the copied sunflower are all identical with the original. If they are put together, they can be seen to be inappropriate at a glance. They are not easy to be detected when they are installed separately. After picking up more spiritual herbs and herbs, it is necessary to repack them again to cover up the situation. After collecting the spiritual medicine and realizing that there were no omissions, Wang Geng continued towards the next spiritual medicine marker point to the south. According to the original record, Han Laoma will be teleported to the northeast corner of the forbidden area, and Nangong Wan is also there. Let's not go there to join the fun. Let's search the periphery for a day and try to collect spiritual herbs. Let's go to the central area later the next day. This is a fairly open grassland, with a giant tree in the center that can only be embraced by more than 10 people. This giant tree has been growing for an unknown number of years, with its body covered in old bark and protrusions, and its crown covered with lush branches and leaves, covering the acres of land under the tree with its teeth and claws, leaving the flowers, plants, and plants under the tree without a trace of sunlight all year round. It was in this dark environment that 3 blood orchids, which like to be cold and damp, were cultivated under the tree. Wang Geng was already 30 feet away in front of the giant tree, motionless for a cup of tea. When he first arrived here, he saw the spiritual flower under the tree. When he reached his current position, he suddenly felt a sense of unease for some reason. Immediately stopping in place, Wang Geng scanned with his naked eye and divine sense over and over again, but did not find any traces of people or monsters. This is an open grassland that cannot hide people, and in sight, there is also a clear view of the giant trees. At this moment, Wang Geng's heart moved and he suddenly began to slowly turn around, carefully observing and comparing the differences in the surrounding environment. Everywhere on the ground are wild flowers and plants of unknown names, accompanied by various insects such as butterflies and bees that cannot be named. Everything is so quiet and peaceful. Wait, insects. In an instant, Wang Geng suddenly realized and turned to look towards the giant tree in front of him. Only a few meters away, there was nothing on the grassland, while elsewhere, various busy insects were flying on the grassland. In comparison, he finally knew where the sense of unease came from. It's unbelievable that there isn't even a dancing flying insect on the grassland from several meters away to the giant tree. Such an abnormal situation prompted Wang Geng to immediately release his divine sense and explore the grassland. The following scene immediately startled Wang Geng's heart. In his divine consciousness, countless pink butterflies and wasps the size of a big thumb fell on the grass, but these butterflies were all lying motionless in the grass, like dead creatures. Wang Geng knew something was wrong and sneered in his heart. He immediately took out 2 fire talismans from his storage bag, triggered them in his hand, and threw them towards the grassland where the insects were located. Then 2 muffled sounds came, and the wild grass on the grassland several meters away immediately caught fire. Just as the fire was rising, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly came from a place more than 20 zhang away, and then the figure of a young man appeared. Judging from his colorful outer robe, it was clear that he was a disciple of the Spirit Beast Mountain with 13 levels of cultivation. At the same time, those originally motionless butterflies and wasps suddenly rose into the sky, blocking the sun and attacking Wang Geng's head. Originally, it was the disciples of Spirit Beast Mountain who silently commanded them to kill Wang Geng. Wang Geng was surprised to see so many bees and butterflies moving together for the first time, and immediately offered a bell-shaped magical tool. In the next moment, countless pink butterflies scattered a cloud of powder mist on his head. These layers of powder mist, like clouds spitting out mist, instantly covered the sky several meters above Wang Geng's head, and then poured down like raindrops, wrapping around the shield of the bell-shaped magical tool. If it were an ordinary defense tool, it would not be able to completely defend against so much powder mist, but the bell-shaped tool is still a top-level shield defense tool. The defense shield covers it tightly and tightly, making it airtight. No matter how much powder mist entangles outside the shield, it cannot enter inside. Just as Wang Geng breathed a sigh of relief, the buzzing sound in the sky began again. The next moment, a huge wasp swarmed across the sky and crawled densely onto the shield of the bell-shaped magic tool, starting to gnaw on it non-stop. Unfortunately, there are plenty of these wasps, but their individual power doesn't seem to be very strong enough to shake the shield of the bell-shaped defense tool. Your magical tool is very powerful. TSK, this seat is missing a top-notch defense tool. As a result, Your Excellency brought it to your door today, and now I have just sent you away. I am also here to kill and seize treasures, he. The young man from Spirit Beast Mountain gave a sinister smile, and before he could finish speaking, he immediately groped around his waist storage bag, as if he was about to take out some very powerful treasure. After seeing that the opponent's powder mist and wasp attacks were ineffective, Wang Geng finally had a chance to free up his hand to fight back. The next moment, he slapped the storage bag on his waist with his right hand, and an additional Scorching Sun Needle talisman appeared in his hand. That's right, seeing the young man from Spirit Beast Mountain across from him with an endless expression, Wang Geng had no intention of waiting any longer and immediately decided to use his ultimate move. This is a forbidden area. If you entangle with the opponent for too long and consume too much mana, even if you win in the end, it will be a loss outweighing gain. Thinking of this, Wang Geng pinched and chanted a spell, and a flash of spiritual light flashed in his hand. He immediately offered the Liang Needle Fubao above his head. Then, with his right hand, he gently pointed towards the young man on the Spirit Beast Mountain. Under his full force, the Liang Needle Fubao emitted a towering pressure, and then lightning struck at the young man on the opposite side. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Yellow Sparrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Yellow Sparrow. At this moment, the Liang Needle Talisman treasure had transformed into a phantom, crystal clear as the clouds, emitting crimson flames all around, flying towards the young man of Spirit Beast Mountain at a speed far beyond ordinary attack tools. As soon as the young man from Spirit Beast Mountain took out a black small hammer magic tool, he felt a towering pressure rising from the opposite side, Fubao. In a state of shock, the young man from Spirit Beast Mountain quickly sacrificed his small hammer magic tool and flew towards the flying Sun Needle Void Shadow. Then, he quickly took out a black handkerchief from his storage bag and wanted to sacrifice it in the air, but all of this is already too late. The speed of the small hammer magic tool was too slow, and the speed of the false shadow of the Scorching Sun Needle was too fast. Wang Geng controlled the false shadow of the Scorching Sun Needle to slightly change direction with just a thought, bypassing the small hammer and stabbing the young man on the Spirit Beast Mountain. The young man from Spirit Beast Mountain only had time to snort, but after a light noise, he was pierced by the false shadow of the Scorching Sun Needle into his chest, creating a blood hole the size of a cup. He fell to the ground with a thud and died on the spot. After losing control of the young man from Spirit Beast Mountain, countless butterflies and wasps around Wang Geng suddenly scattered and flew towards the surrounding wilderness forests, while the small hammer and black handkerchief fell to the ground with a clanging sound. Upon hearing the sound, Wang Geng walked over and first put away the small hammer and black handkerchief on the ground. Then, he took off the storage bag of the young man from the Spirit Beast Mountain and 2 Spirit Beast bags. He found that both Spirit Beast bags were empty, so he casually threw them away. The small hammer is a top-notch attack tool, although it seems to have great power, its speed is too slow and loses flexibility, so it is not very practical. The black handkerchief is just a top-notch defense tool, and its power is not great. So Wang Geng casually put them all into the corner of the storage bag. Finally, Wang Geng discovered that there were only a few dozen spirit stones and some miscellaneous items in the storage bag of the young man on the Spirit Beast Mountain, so he casually hung the storage bag around his waist. It seems that this young man is just one of the more powerful ordinary disciples, relying on his advanced martial arts and 2 types of spiritual insects he raised. He wanted to ambush and attack me, to kill and seize treasures, but he didn't expect to be killed by me in the end. The 3 blood orchids under the giant tree had already grown a lot of ideas, but only 2 of them were old enough. So Wang Geng picked the 2 blood orchids and replicated them one by one, then continued to move south. This is a deep water pond under a waterfall. The water is icy cold and piercing, with a faint cold mist floating above the pond. There are 3 harvested cold tobacco plants by the pond, and next to the harvested spiritual grass lies the bodies of 3 first-level demon beasts. The cold toad. Obviously, someone has already visited this place. After killing the guardian monster, he picked the spiritual medicine and left. The people here have gone to the central area, or are they heading south? Seeing that the spiritual grass here had already been picked, Wang Geng felt a bit unsure of where to go next. Finally, seeing that only half of the first day had passed and it was still early, he decided to walk further south. If the next elixir was still picked, he was ready to leave the periphery and head to the central area. The experts in the central area are like clouds, and if you are not careful, you will be attacked. If you can find a similar number of spiritual herbs and elixirs on the periphery, then it would be great. This is a narrow and unnamed small valley, running east-west, with a radius of only 20-30 zhang. There is only one exit to the east at this moment. 5 people were fighting together at the mouth of the valley. Among them, 3 disciples of Hua Dao Wu are besieging 2 Qingshu sect Taoists who are trapped in the valley. Among the 3 disciples of Hua Dao Wu, the leader is a bearded man with 13 levels of martial arts, while the other 2 young men have 12 levels of martial arts, while the 2 Qingshu sect Taoists each only have 12 levels of martial arts. The number of people was dominant, and the cultivation level of the leader Han was even higher, which gave the 3 disciples of Hua Dao Wu an advantage in the capital and gradually put the 2 Qingshu sect Taoists in danger. 3 Dao friends from Hua Dao Wu, my junior brother and I can offer all the spiritual medicines and herbs on our bodies, just asking for our lives to be spared. At the moment of life and death, one of the elderly Taoists from the Qingshu sect shouted hoarsely, "Sure, you can throw the jade box containing spiritual herbs and elixirs over now, then put away the magical tools and leave one by one." The bearded man led by Hua Daowu spoke loudly. The 2 Taoists of the Qingshu sect hesitated for a moment upon hearing this, and then, as if forced, took out a jade box from each storage bag and threw it to the bearded man in the Hua Daowu. The bearded man opened 2 jade boxes in front of him, saw 2 spiritual herbs on each side, and nodded with satisfaction. He covered the 2 jade boxes again and put them in a storage bag. Then, he waved his hand to signal the other 2 fellow disciples to also put away the magic tools and make way for the road. Just in a place that the 2 Qingshu sect Taoists couldn't see, the 3 Huadao Wu cultivators secretly exchanged glances, clearly agreeing on something. Then the 3 of them walked out of the valley and stood guard on one side, with their hands turned upside down, before smiling and gesturing for the 2 Qingshu sect Taoists to leave. Looking at the 3 disciples of the Huadao fortress guarding the entrance of the valley, the old Taoist of the Qingshu sect had a hint of fear in his eyes. After his eyes twitched, he turned his head and pretended to be righteous and said in a low voice to another young Taoist, "Junior brother, you are still young. You should escape from the valley first, and I am already old. Let me stay behind and raid the formation for you." The young Taoist from the Qingshu sect did not show any gratitude upon hearing this, and his gaze towards the old Taoist was devoid of any emotion. Then, after a period of uncertain expression, he gritted his teeth and quickly walked towards the valley mouth. Quickly, the young Taoist walked out of the valley. Just as he was about 5 or 6 meters away from the valley, 3 fire bullets suddenly hit him from behind and hit his back one after another. After 3 muffled sounds, the young Taoist unexpectedly died on the spot. Originally, it was the 3 disciples of Huadao Wu who conspired to attack and kill the former from behind. You did indeed launch a surprise attack from behind. You turned back. You must die hard. The old Taoist who stayed in the valley became hysterical when he saw this scene. He kept retreating towards the valley and cursed the 3 members of Huadao Wu in a sharp voice just as the 3 of them in the Huadao fortress took out their magical tools and chased after the valley, grinning and wanting to kill the old Taoist. The latter suddenly took out a flying magical tool from his storage bag, and then the imperial tool flew over the top of the Huadao fortress's 3 heads and rushed towards the outside of the valley. Isn't the restricted area a no-fly zone? While the 3 of them were puzzled at the Huadao Wu, a huge green blade suddenly fell from the sky and struck the old Taoist in mid-air. After a scream, the old Taoist, along with the flying magic tool under his feet and the storage bag on his waist, instantly turned into flying ash unexpectedly. The old Taoist jumped over the wall and triggered the no-fly restriction, and was killed by the Forbidden Area formation. This scene was so shocking that the three members of Huadao Wu were stunned and extremely speechless. After a moment, the three of Huadao Wu suddenly burst into laughter and walked towards the valley mouth together. When they had enough laughter, the three of us were lucky this time. We teleported to a location not far from the Forbidden Area, not only picking spiritual medicines, but also forming a team to kill and seize treasures. Now we have obtained many spiritual medicines in just one day. Do you have any good plans, senior brother? A young man in white at Huadao Wu admired and asked the leading Han. The strength of the three of us is good against ordinary disciples of various sects, but we are not opponents of elite disciples. I think we can only search for spiritual medicine outside the Forbidden Area. When there is no medicine to find, we can enter the central area and then find a hidden place to hide. How about waiting for the teleportation array to open before coming out? Although the bearded man from Huadao Wu appeared rough and crazy, he never expected to be a refined person in his heart, and even said the above reasonable words, right, senior brother. That's the old saying. I think we can keep searching north and follow senior brother's instructions when time comes. We can definitely save our lives. The last young man in a blue shirt repeatedly expressed his admiration and agreement. After the three of them reached a consensus, they had already reached the valley mouth. At this moment, a sudden mutation occurred, and a red needle-shaped phantom suddenly struck from one side of the valley mouth like lightning, piercing through the chests of the bearded man and the young man in white clothes in Huadao Wu. The two of them fell to the ground with two plop and plop sounds, and as they watched, there was no sound left. The last young man in the blue shirt exclaimed in surprise, then turned around to look in the direction of the needle-shaped phantom and reached out to the storage bag at his waist, seemingly wanting to take out something. At this moment, another blood-red blade suddenly lit up behind the young man in the blue shirt and lightning struck him. The young man in the blue shirt was unprepared and was instantly pierced by a blood-red light in his chest in the blink of an eye. All three disciples of the Huadao fortress returned to the underworld. At this moment, a person suddenly stood up at the place where the crimson needle-shaped phantom and blood-red knife light rose, and slowly walked to the valley entrance. It was Wang Geng, who had been here for a long time. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Second Layer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Second Layer. After picking up the storage bags of the four people on the ground, Wang Geng immediately found a hidden place and poured all the contents of the storage bags onto the ground, carefully examining them. Obviously, these four people are all ordinary disciples, and together they have less than 400 spiritual stones, 200 various medium and low-level talismans, more than 10 medium and low-grade magical tools, and 6 top-grade magical tools. Among them, Wang Xian is most interested in the 6 spiritual medicines placed in 3 jade boxes. After replicating all 6 spiritual medicines, he counted all the medicines he currently had together and found that there were as many as 20.2, which was considered half of the expected goal. However, it is very likely that the elixir cannot be found on the outskirts now, and he can only rush to the central area next. At this point, the first day of the trial was about to end, as the central area started on the third day and it was useless to go early. Therefore, Wang Geng found a large tree with lush branches and leaves to climb up, preparing to meditate and refine qi to replenish the lost mana from the day, while also recovering his physical fatigue. According to the original plot of Mortals, when the fog is broken, elite disciples from various factions will guard the entrance in all 4 directions of the central area, specifically intercepting those who lack strength but dream of entering the second floor of the central area to collect herbs. Wang Geng is not afraid of these elite disciples, but there is no need to go there so early. Firstly, he is afraid that after encountering his fellow disciples, he will not have the opportunity to replicate the spiritual medicine again. Secondly, he is afraid that there will be many people at the entrance, and if he accidentally conflicts with others and is attacked by a third party, it will be too late to regret. He is ready to pinch some and enter the central area. As long as he mixes 10 more spiritual herbs and elixirs, the task will be completed and everything will be fine. After fully restoring his mana, it had been 10 hours, and with just over 2 more hours left, it was time to open the central area. Wang Geng set off on his journey. When he entered the forbidden area, he was in the northwest. Since he had been heading south on the first day, he can only enter from the west gate of the central area now. At this point, there was no one on the road, most of them were killed, and a few were hiding. Thinking to themselves that they were experts, they should have already reached the entrance of the second floor of the central area. After the fog was cleared, they went to the second floor to pick the 3 great elixirs. An hour later, Wang Geng arrived at the west gate, only to find that there was no one at the entrance. After entering the first floor, he saw more than 10 cultivators at the entrance of the second floor. Wang Geng did not approach rashly, but instead observed from a hidden area. When he saw an old slick man wearing a yellow shirt, he was even more atmospheric and dared not take a breath. This person is exactly bowing to it. At this moment, Qiong Zhili was staying with 2 other cultivators from different sects, and the 3 of them seemed to be chatting happily. I originally wanted to avoid Han Laoma and Nangong Wan, but by chance, I saw another Xiang Lao Guai here. It's really unlucky. Wang Geng only remembers the general plot of Ordinary People, but he was not very clear about the movements of the old ghost in the forbidden area, so he coincidentally met him afterwards. Wang Geng did not dare to step forward until the fog broke through and everyone at the door, including Xiong Zhili, left before cautiously walking to the door. After seeing Xiong Zhili heading east, he chose a direction in the south where no one was going and entered the circular mountain range. Unlike the inner layer of the forbidden area, there are mostly auxiliary medicines for building foundation pills on the periphery, while the spiritual grass in the circular mountain range is the 3 main medicines for refining foundation pills. Purple monkey flower, heavenly spirit fruit, and jade marrow ganoderma. These main medicines have extremely high requirements for the year, which can take hundreds of years, making it even more difficult to find. After entering the circular mountain range, there were more monster beasts in an instant. After only traveling 500 meters, they encountered 2 first-level, middle and lower-level monster beasts and were killed one by one with his blood flame blade. Afterwards, Wang Geng killed the demon beasts all the way, and it took more than 2 hours before finally reaching the first spiritual medicine marking point. This is a mountain forest, where several Tianling fruits grow next to a giant rock. After entering the mountains and forests, Wang Geng suddenly realized that the originally large number of demon beasts had disappeared in an instant. He understood what was going on with just a little thought. This must be a high-level guardian monster in the forest, which scared away the surrounding low-level monsters. Thinking of this, Wang Geng hurriedly exerted his technique of restraining qi, and then cautiously sneaked towards a certain place in the mountains and forests. Heavenly spirit fruit, 3-eyed fire wolf. When he arrived near the boulder, Wang Geng immediately saw 3 heavenly spirit fruits growing under the boulder and a 3-eyed fire wolf guarding beside him. The adult 3-eyed fire wolf is a top-level monster with a tall body and is good at spitting fire. No wonder it can scare away the surrounding monsters. Seeing the 3-eyed fire wolf lying near the heavenly spirit fruit, Wang Geng thought for a moment and immediately retreated silently to prevent a fight from damaging the fruit. After retreating about 100 meters, Wang Geng stopped and immediately touched the storage bag around his waist. He took out the blood flame blade and silver light shield, and sacrificed them separately before driving the blood flame blade towards a nearby giant tree. After a loud bang, a basin-sized piece of the trunk of the giant tree was cut off, and at the same time, a mournful wolf howl came from the direction where the heavenly spirit fruit was located. Then, a rapid sound of footsteps came over, and only 20 meters away from a giant tree, 3 eyes of the fiery wolf appeared. As soon as Wang Geng saw this beast appear, he immediately drove the blood flame blade to cut it over. The 3-eyed fire wolf saw a fierce look in his eyes, and immediately opened his mouth, spewing out a burst of flames. Facing the flying blood flame blade, the blood flame blade and flame immediately collided fiercely in mid-air. After a muffled thud, although the Flame's power was exhausted and disappeared. The blood flame blade was forced to stop and lost its original speed. Although the blood flame blade is just an ordinary top-level magic weapon, the flames emitted by these three-eyed fire wolves can actually block its slashing, which is also remarkable seeing that one blow could not work. Wang Geng once again activated the blood flame blade attack. While reaching out to his waist storage bag and taking out a flame needle talisman, it was extremely dangerous in the circular mountain, and spending an extra bit of mana anywhere could lead to fatal consequences. Therefore, when Blood Flame Blade could not defeat the enemy's rear with one move, Wang Geng immediately decided to use the talisman. After a spell of incantation, a needle-shaped phantom emitting crimson flames was sacrificed in mid-air by Wang Geng, and then lightning struck the three-eyed fire wolf across from him. At this point, the three-eyed fire wolf had once again forced the blood flame blade to stop. After seeing the flame needle and talisman treasure, he wanted to follow the same method and once again spewed out flames to greet him, but its wishful thinking was wrong. The power of the flame needle talisman treasure is much more powerful than the blood flame blade. The needle-shaped phantom shattered the flames emitted by the three-eyed fire wolf with just one shot, and then pierced the latter's forehead. After a muffled bang, the head of the three-eyed fire wolf was pierced with a hole the size of a cup mouth, and it fell to the ground without saying a word, losing its life on the spot. Seeing the scorching sun needle talisman treasure kill the enemy with one strike, Wang Geng finally breathed a sigh of relief. He then thought of not using the blood flame blade easily in the forbidden area anymore. After all, its power was slightly insufficient, and dealing with high-level demon beasts was a waste of mana. Wang Geng didn't even glance at the body of the fire wolf 3 times and ran straight towards the giant rocks in the forest. It was only when he arrived that he observed the condition of the 3 tianling fruits up close for the first time. Why is there only one tianling fruit that is old enough? It's really unlucky. The heavenly spirit fruit has extremely high requirements for its age. Although the other 2 plants have grown for hundreds of years, they still lack several decades of heat. Even if they are picked and taken out of the forbidden area, the 7 major sects do not recognize them. After picking and replicating the only tianling fruit that was old enough, Wang Geng headed to the next location. After searching for 3 places in a row, Wang Geng found that either there was no elixir in these places, or the year of the elixir was not enough. As the 3rd day was about to pass, Wang Geng couldn't help but start to worry. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Strong Enemies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Strong Enemies. If we continue to do the same in the next 2 days, won't the goal of having more than 40 spiritual herbs be firmly established? With this restless mood, Wang Geng rushed to the next location. This is a cliff that reaches up to 100 meters high, and below it is a huge stalactite cave. At this moment, Wang Geng was hiding on one side of the entrance of the stalactite cave. Peering inside, there are several jade marrow mushrooms on a stone platform deep in the cave, but next to them is a first-level top-tier demon beast called Flying Feather Peacock. Guarding this is why Wang Geng did not directly enter the cave, but instead peered outside. There are many types of top-level monsters in this world. If it is an ordinary type of monster, its strength should not be as good as that of ordinary elite disciples in the Qi refining period. However, if it is a barbaric alien, it may not be something that Qi refining disciples can handle. The flying feather peacock, although not a wild and exotic species, can still be considered an ancient beast passed down from ancient times. After reaching adulthood, the flying feather peacock can shoot out dozens of long tail feathers and use them as flying knives. And the power of each feather is no less than that of an inferior magical tool who can deal with the crazy siege of dozens of inferior magical tools at the same time during the Qi refining period. Fortunately, Wang Geng was not an ordinary disciple. The 2 treasures in his storage bag at the moment were enough to help him counter the flying feather peacock. On the other side, one is a top-notch bell-shaped defense artifact, and the other is a blue feather fan talisman. Thinking of this, Wang Geng immediately patted the storage bag around his waist, and in a flash of spiritual light, he took out a bell-shaped magical tool and a blue feather fan talisman. He first sacrificed the bell-shaped artifact on his head, allowing the protective shield to cover his entire body. Then, He held the blue feather fan talisman in his right palm and waited quietly for the flying peacock in the cave. Just as Wang Geng was using his magic, the flying peacock in the cave felt the fluctuation of the spiritual energy at the entrance. The flying feather peacock suddenly woke up, growling and running towards the cave entrance at lightning speed. When he saw Wang Geng at the entrance of the cave, he let out a scream and a peacock opened its screen. Then, feathers shot towards Wang Geng, and countless sounds of breaking through the air echoed around the entrance. Before the flying feather peacock could run out of the hole, Wang Geng had already begun to recite spells. Then, with a flash of spiritual light in his hand, he offered the green feather fan talisman treasure above his head and pointed towards the flying feather. The crystal clear blue feather fan phantom then gently fanned towards the sky, followed by countless fist-sized wind blades appearing out of nowhere and rapidly shooting towards the feathers that covered the sky. When the feather and the wind blade collided, countless air explosions erupted in the sky. While most of the wind blades disappeared, almost half of the feather fell to the ground, and the spiritual light was clearly dim below. Under the command of Wang Geng, the ethereal shadow of the blue feather fan moved once again, and then countless wind blades charged towards the remaining feathers in mid-air. Another sound of breaking through the air came, and by the time the wind blade disappeared, the feathers of the flying feather peacock had already been completely destroyed. At this moment, a cold light flashed in Wang Geng's eyes, and he took out the blood flame blade from his storage bag. He then sacrificed the latter and chopped it towards the flying feather peacock. Without the protection of feathers, the flying peacock was like a grasshopper in autumn, jumping only twice before being cut off by a blood flame knife and losing its life on the spot below. Wang Geng gave a self-deprecating smile and put away the blood flame blade, blue feather fan talisman, and bell-shaped magical tools. He was originally afraid that the green feather fan Fubao would not be able to fully accept the feather attack of the flying feather peacock, so he first offered a bell-shaped magical tool to protect himself, and the result was obviously multiple attempts. After collecting the treasure, Wang Geng hurriedly walked into the depths of the cave and looked at the 3 jade marrow mushrooms on the stone platform. This jade marrow Ganoderma is truly a famous spiritual medicine in southern China. It is crystal clear and emits a strong medicinal fragrance, making people feel intoxicated upon smelling it. Unfortunately, among the 3 spiritual medicines, only the largest one is old enough, and the other 2 jade marrow mushrooms need to grow for several decades before they can be used as medicine. Just as Wang Geng was about to pick this jade marrow mushroom, he suddenly felt a wave of spiritual energy coming from outside the cave, followed by a buzzing sound that soared into the sky. As if something was flying towards him. Startled, Wang Geng immediately slapped the storage bag around his waist and offered the silver shield, then instinctively blocked it in front of him. At the next moment, the silver shield made a loud bang, clearly colliding with the flying object. At this moment, Wang Geng had just turned around when he saw a green cane rapidly changing direction and poking at him again. Subconsciously, Wang Geng once again let the silver shield block the blue cane. After a loud bang, the blue cane was stopped again. Afterwards, the blue cane changed direction one after another to break through the defense of the silver shield, but the silver shield was very agile and always could block the former in time. All of this happened in a blink of an eye. When Wang Geng regained his senses, he realized that there was an old man in a blue shirt standing at the entrance of the Zhongru cave, who was constantly attacking him with his blue cane, and the opponent's blue cane was extremely fast, almost unable to accommodate Wang Geng's time to think, and could only passively command the silver shield defense. At the same time, the blue cane was also extremely powerful. After only a dozen or so attacks, the silver light on the silver shield almost dimmed with the naked eye. Hiss. This is also a top-level magic weapon. Is the power difference so big? What material is the opponent's blue cane made of? These thoughts were just a momentary moment of thought. Upon realizing the danger, Wang Geng commanded the silver shield defense while quickly retrieving a scorching sun needle talisman from his storage bag. After a spell of pinching and chanting, the next moment, a needle-shaped phantom with crimson flames leaped up to Wang Geng's head and suddenly struck towards the blue cane that was flying again. At the next moment, a loud bang spread, and after colliding with the blue cane and the scorching sun needle talisman, the remaining momentum was not exhausted. They continued to lift the cow in mid-air, looking evenly matched. This surprised Wang Geng even more. You should know that although the Liang needle fubao is never known for its great power, it is still a fubao, possessing the power of 1/10 or 2 of the ordinary magic treasures of Jidan cultivators. However, today, it is really strange to see the blue cane in front of me. Just as Wang Geng was amazed, the old man in green clothes at the entrance of the cave was also secretly puzzled. When he arrived here, he happened to see Wang Geng focused on scrutinizing the 3 jade marrow mushrooms on the stone platform. Seeing that the opportunity was rare, the old man in the blue shirt launched a surprise attack, but he didn't expect that he would have no choice but to find a young cultivator of the moon sect with a 12th level cultivation. The Qiong old man has a 13 level cultivation and has been famous for a long time. Although he is destined not to enter the foundation building period in this life, in terms of strength, he is one of the few masters among the disciples in the Qi refining period. No wonder he has this idea below. The old man in the green shirt continued to use his blue cane while also taking out a yellow medicinal pestle from his waist storage bag. Just as he was about to sacrifice it in the air, he felt a huge pressure coming from the opposite side. He quickly looked up and found that the male disciple of the moon covering sect had retrieved his silver shield and offered another feather fan talisman, which was about to be activated. Upon seeing this scene, the old man in green froze his gaze and was somewhat incredulous that Wang Geng could possess 2 talismans at the same time. He then waved towards the blue cane and decisively began to retreat. After retreating about 10 zhang, he suddenly turned around and walked away. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. 8 Aliens. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. 8 Aliens. The scene of the other party turning around and leaving left Wang Geng somewhat incredulous until it was confirmed that the old man in the green shirt had really left. He breathed a sigh of relief and then withdrew the blue feather fan talisman and silver light shield. When he tried to retrieve the scorching sun needle talisman again, the latter ignited in mid-air until it burned into a pile of ashes. Since entering the forbidden area, Wang Geng has used this treasure multiple times to kill enemies and monsters, and now he has finally exhausted its power. When Wang Geng looked at the silver shield, he was secretly shocked again at this moment. The silver shield not only had a much dimmer spiritual light, but also had more than 10 pits on the originally smooth mirror-like shield surface, clearly injured by the blue cane just now. The blood flame knife cannot kill the 3 eyes fire wolf, and the silver light shield cannot withstand the hammer strike of the blue crutch. It seems that the top-notch magic weapon purchased in the local market is ultimately lacking in quality. In the future, we will still need to customize a few powerful magic tools ourselves. The blue cane of the Qiong old man was able to level with the Liang needle talisman, allowing Wang Geng to rediscover the power of a top-notch magical tool, which led to this kind of plan. Carefully picking the jade marrow mushroom, Wang Geng replicated it and then put it into 2 jade boxes. Next, Wang Geng sat down directly in the Zhongru cave and began to meditate to refine and replenish the lost mana. Although the Liang needle talisman consumes less mana, the Qingyu fan talisman is a big spender of mana. After 2 uses, it has already caused Wang Geng to lose nearly 1/3 of his mana. 3 hours later, Wang Geng leaped up and his magical power had fully recovered. Glancing around and realizing nothing was missing, he walked straight down the mountain. At this time, half of the 4th day of the forbidden area had passed, and Wang Geng had only picked 2 miraculous herbs in 2 days, plus more than 20 already in the storage bag. After these spiritual medicines were released, he could only exchange for 2 foundation pills, while 4 foundation pills did not guarantee a 100% foundation, which forced him to make a difficult decision. There are 2 marking methods in the 2nd layer of the restricted area. Central area issued by the moon masking sect. 1 type is ordinary marker points, where many wild spiritual herbs grow, while the 2nd type is spiritual herbs transplanted by the original owner of the forbidden area. The quantity of spiritual medicines in the previous place was entirely determined by fate, while the quantity of spiritual medicines in the latter place is very considerable. Unfortunately, the guardian spirit beasts in the latter place are mostly ancient or wild beasts, such as the ink dragon that was killed by the original Chinese and Korean old demons, and Nangong Wan in the stone palace, and the place where Wang Geng is about to go is such a dangerous place. Although it is very dangerous to do so, Wang Geng must go and see it with his own eyes. If there is a danger to his life, he can just leave at that time. After all, only living can have hope. If there is an opportunity to take advantage of it and enough spiritual herbs and medicines are harvested, then entering the forbidden area can be said to be a great success. Wang Geng must build a foundation before Han Laomo, and find the buried Great Movement Order and 5-colored spirit pill in advance, and then make a copy of each one. If he misses this time point, he will miss out on a series of mortal plots and opportunities. For example, without the 5-colored spirit pill, he would not be able to improve his spiritual root qualification, and would not be able to keep up with Han Laomo's future cultivation speed. He would miss out on many opportunities that could be utilized. Without the Great Movement Order, he would not be able to teleport to the Chaotic Star Sea to kill demons and obtain pills during the invasion of the 6 demon schools. While seeking refuge, he could also quickly cultivate to the Golden Elixir period. This is a stone palace hidden at the foot of the mountain within a radius of 1 mile. The stone hall is covered in ash and soil, with no life on it to grow, and there was still a faint smell of sulfur floating in the air. Wang Geng had already arrived outside the stone palace and was using his divine sense to investigate inside. After a moment, Wang Geng frowned tightly. The stone hall is clearly just an exit. And there is also an underground space below the stone hall. At this moment, Wang Geng raised his head to look at the sky, then turned his head to scan left and right, and finally decided to go down. As soon as Wang Geng walked into the stone palace, a strong smell of sulfur hit him, several times higher than the outside. As he reached an underground entrance in the center of the stone palace, a strong sense of stuffiness came from below. After probing his divine sense into the underground space, Wang Geng finally understood what was going on. Originally, there was a nearly 30 zhang wide underground river in the underground space, flowing not water but hot red magma. The smell of sulfur and hot gas are both released from the magma of the underground river. The underground space is vast, with a circumference of 100 zhang. The magma river divides it into 2 parts. The larger part is empty, while the smaller part has a several-foot-high stone platform. On the platform, there is a shining yellow box with more than 20 different spiritual medicines scattered around. They include heavenly spirit fruit, purple monkey flower, and jade pulp mushroom, which are the 3 main medicines for refining and building foundation pills. Half of them are over 500 years old, indicating that they can be harvested and used as medicine. Wang Geng carefully walked down the steps to the underground space. At first glance, he saw the stone platform and yellow box in the small space, and then he saw various elixirs around the box. Just as he was ecstatic in his heart, he suddenly saw something in the magma river, and his heart suddenly cooled. That is a stone platform that rises 2 or 3 feet above the magma river, separated by large and small spaces. On the platform, there is a basin-sized alien fire toad perched on it, with a calm and composed appearance that looks like nothing around the fiery red magma. This unnamed fire toad is crimson and fiery, with short legs and a big mouth. It has dozens of black protrusions the size of a fist on its back, which is extremely ugly. The pair of big eyes, which make up half of its head, are now tightly closed together. Not knowing if it is asleep or practicing due to the lack of information about this fire toad in his memory, Wang Geng also did not know its rank and strength. Helpless, Wang Geng could only hide in the distance and activate the Heavenly Eye technique to investigate the information of the alien fire toad. Surprisingly, it's just a top-level monster. In the midst of a burst of fluorescence, the rank of the alien fire toad was exposed, leaving Wang Geng somewhat incredulous. Just as he activated the Heavenly Eye technique, the fluctuation of spiritual energy here was also detected by the alien fire toad in the magma river. Then, with a movement of its eyelids, it opened a pair of huge eyes and looked over. Upon discovering that the alien fire toad saw him, Wang Geng simply stopped hiding and stood up boldly, walking towards the alien fire toad in the magma river. His goal is to extract the spiritual herbs and elixirs across the river. Sooner or later, he will have to try the power of the alien toad, and waiting for more is useless. So, as he approached, he offered a bell-shaped talisman and then clasped a blue feather fan talisman and the remaining scorching sun needle talisman in the hearts of both hands. When the distance between the alien fire toad was only 20 zhang, Wang Geng stopped and immediately recited a spell, sacrificing the scorching sun needle talisman treasure above his head. With a movement of his mind, he used all his magic power to drive the scorching sun needle phantom towards the alien fire toad. The speed of the fiery sun needle's virtual shadow is very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it is only a few meters away from the alien fire toad. The alien fire toad had already noticed Wang Geng, and when he saw Fu Bao approaching, he suddenly opened his mouth, and something in his mouth flashed towards the phantom of the scorching sun needle flying towards him. After a loud bang, the false shadow of the scorching sun needle was unexpectedly pulled back 3 or 4 meters. While the alien fire toad remained unscathed, Wang Geng could see clearly with his divine sense that the alien fire toad between the electric light and fire stones had extended its tongue and knocked away the false shadow of the scorching sun needle talisman. The tongue of this exotic beast is not only more powerful than the flame yang needle talisman, but also faster in speed. Hiss. Is this the strength of the exotic monster? Even talismans can be easily knocked away. Thank you to all the book collectors and voters. I will try my best to write well and make everyone happy to read. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Success. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Success. Seeing that the scorching sun needle talisman had suffered a loss, Wang Geng felt a little heartbroken and took it back and put it back in his storage bag immediately. Wang Geng turned to reciting spells and offering the green feather fan Fu Bao. In the next moment, under the shadow of the green feather fan, countless fist-sized wind blades slashed towards the alien fire toad on the stone platform. Faced with the overwhelming wind blade, the alien fire toad blinked its huge eyes and then suddenly let out a strange cry. In the next moment, countless fireballs suddenly rose from the magma river, and meteors rained towards the wind blade in the air. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the wind blade and fireball collided in the air, and then erupted into countless explosions and sparks. The fire rain lasted for more than a decade before gradually falling into silence. At this moment, the smell of sulfur in the air became stronger, the temperature around him also increased, and Wang Geng's trump card was exhausted. Is it a refund? Is it staying? Wang Geng's eyes began to wander between the treasure chest, elixir, and the exotic fire toad in the magma river across from him, and his heart began to constantly weigh. Then, he began to use his divine sense to constantly explore the various storage bags around his waist, hoping to find a way to break through the situation among the items in the bags. Just as his mind was spinning, Wang Geng suddenly caught a glimpse of 2 identical mid-level talismans in the storage bag with a corner of his eye. Then, his eyes lit up and an idea suddenly came to his mind. Perhaps this can be achieved. Do whatever comes to mind. Wang Geng immediately clasped both talismans on his left hand, and then exerted all his power again to make the green feather fan phantom fan out towards the alien fire toad. The latter also activated his magic again to send countless fireballs to confront the wind blade. Just as the wind blades and fireballs began to collide with each other again, emitting a huge sound and spiritual fluctuations, Wang Geng immediately threw out a talisman in his hand and disappeared in place. When Wang Geng appeared again, he had already reached the stone platform in a small space. Originally, Wang Geng used a medium-level talisman wind escape technique, and directly crossed a distance of nearly 40 zhang to escape to his current position. At this moment, the explosion had not yet ended, and the fluctuation of spiritual energy in the air continued. Wang Geng quickly grabbed the mature spiritual medicine from the stone platform. Every time he picked a spiritual medicine, he would simply put it in a storage bag without looking at it. After picking all the mature elixirs, Wang Geng turned around and opened the yellow box on the stone platform while the fire and rain continued to fall. Without looking inside, he grabbed it in his hand and put it in a storage bag. At this point, the rain of fire had also fallen, and the alien toad in the magma river finally found that Wang Geng was missing. Just as it was puzzled, it heard footsteps in the small space behind it. Then the alien toad's eyes rolled, and without looking back, they saw Wang Geng on the stone platform. At this point, Wang Geng had already put away the items in the yellow box and noticed that the alien toad had discovered him. Upon seeing this scene, Wang Geng was startled and immediately threw another wind escape talisman in the direction of his arrival. The next moment, Wang Geng disappeared in place and appeared in the large space where he was originally standing, about 30 feet away. He wanted to retrieve the green feather fan talisman treasure, but suddenly realized that a different species of toad had jumped up and chased after him at lightning speed, so Fu Bao didn't take it anymore and immediately applied a windward blow to himself, then ran towards the steps of the underground space exit. What Wang Geng didn't know was that just as he was unleashing his wind escape, the eyes of the exotic fire toad could always keep up with his wind escape speed, staring at his figure. Just as Wang Geng landed on the ground in a large space, the alien fire toad also let out a strange cry, then suddenly jumped up more than 10 zhang. First, it jumped onto the shore of the large space of the magma river, and then jumped again to reach the position where Wang Geng had originally stood. It immediately threw its tongue at him like lightning. If Wang Geng had any sense, he turned around and happened to see the tongue of the alien fire toad within reach. At the next moment, a loud bang came, and Wang Geng felt a tremendous force behind him, pushing him unsteadily forward for more than 10 steps. When he turned around, he found that the silver shield, which had originally been closely guarded, had already fallen to the ground in a dull and lifeless state, indicating that it had been scrapped. In a state of shock, Wang Geng quickly took out a dozen talismans from his storage bag and, without looking at them, threw 3 of them towards the exotic fire toad behind him, who was about to jump up again after 3 muffled sounds of thump, 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 thump. Thump, 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 thump. Thursday afterwards, every 10 meters he ran out, he threw 3 or 4 attack talismans at the exotic fire toad behind him, interrupting its jumping time and making it unable to chase continuously. After Wang Geng ran up the steps of the stone palace, he threw the remaining 10 or so attack symbols into the entrance of the underground space in one breath. Then, he turned around and ran towards the gate of the stone palace. After running dozens of meters out of the main hall, he realized that the alien fire toad had not caught up at all. Nevertheless, Wang Geng had no intention of stopping, but instead ran several miles away until he could no longer see the stone palace before stopping at the foot of a hidden stone mountain. After inspecting for a week and finding no one around, he quickly took out all the randomly thrown elixirs from the storage bag, and then copied and stored them one by one. Later, Wang Geng chuckled foolishly, as he already possessed 46 spiritual medicines. Although I lost a talisman and damaged the silver shield, with these spiritual medicines as compensation, this trip is enough. Next, Wang Geng took out the item he had collected from the yellow box and found it to be a yellow jade slip. The yellow jade slips record a piece of alchemy called Heavenly Craft Treasure Refining Technique. According to the creator of this art, all the ways of refining weapons in the world are nothing more than smelting materials, refining inscriptions, and refining methods. Each family has their own strengths, among which smelting materials are the most important. This person devoted his whole life to studying alchemy, and later gathered the strengths of 100 schools of thought to come up with a unique method of material smelting. Regardless of the type of material, as long as this method is used for smelting, the magical tools produced will be 1.5 more powerful than before. Upon seeing this, Wang Geng was pleasantly surprised but immediately put away the jade slip and began meditating to replenish his mana. It was not yet time to study the content of the jade slip, as long as he knew it was very valuable. Fighting can erupt at any time in the forbidden area, and maintaining abundant mana at all times is the only way to save life. 4 hours later, Wang Geng finally replenished his mana. At this moment, it was already the morning of the 5th day, and the teleportation array that was about to be activated was about to leave in half a day. Wang Geng, who had already completed the task, had no intention of searching for the elixir anymore, so he walked towards the nearest teleportation location. As a result, Wang Geng had just walked halfway when he heard deafening explosions coming from 200 to 300 meters on the right side. clearly indicating that someone was fighting there. The matchmaking technique under the sect told him that there was also a disciple of the Moon Covering Sect in the area where the fight was taking place. After a moment of hesitation, Wang Geng sneaked over. Although he didn't know which fellow disciple was there, since he had encountered him, if he could help, he might as well take action to reinforce him at the location of the fight. Wang Geng discovered that 5 disciples of the Hua Dao Wu were besieging a female cultivator of the Moon Covering Sect with all their might. The female cultivator of the Moon Covering Sect turned out to be Cui Yueling, the dual cultivator of Wang Geng. Obviously, Cui Yueling was lucky enough to survive in this forbidden area, but at this moment, he is also very embarrassed. I saw that 3 or 5 various magical tools had fallen off her body, and the stains and a dull appearance on the observation tool were clearly the enemy's magical tools that were fixed by her blue condensation mirror and then contaminated and damaged by the toxic mist released by the crystal ball. However, there were too many disciples in the Huadao fortress, each with 2 or 3 top quality magical tools. Under the siege of so many magical tools, although the silk handkerchief magical tool on Cui Yueling's head had amazing defense, it was also shaken and showed a look of being unable to support immediately. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Return to the Ancestral Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Return to the Ancestral Sect. Seeing that the situation was critical, Wang Geng did not act hastily, but continued to quietly move forward. It wasn't until the closest disciple of the Huadao fortress was only about 20 zhang away that he tapped the storage bag on his waist, took out the Scorching Sun Needle talisman, and immediately pinched the formula and chanted a spell to attack the opponent. Without looking, he then offered the bell-shaped magical tool above his head. The disciple from the opposite Huadao Wu didn't notice Wang Geng's presence. When he realized something was wrong, he didn't have time to recall the magic weapon, so he immediately applied a protective shield to his body. At this moment, the false shadow of the Scorching Sun Needle had already chopped onto the shield outside the disciple's body. The next moment, a muffled thud came, and the disciple of the Hua Dao Wu didn't even say a word, even wearing a mask and being pierced, died on the spot. At this moment, both sides in the fierce battle had already seen Wang Geng and his Liang Needle talisman. Cui Yueling was overjoyed and immediately perked up her spirits, intensifying her offensive. But the other 4 people in Huadao Wu were shocked and quickly divided into 2 to stop Wang Geng. After losing 3 people, Cui Yueling's pressure suddenly decreased. She immediately commanded 3 magic weapons to attack the 2 people on the opposite side. The poisonous mist sprayed out by her blue condensation mirror and crystal ball was too strong, and she couldn't resist relying solely on the 2 people on the opposite side. In the blink of an eye, 2 magic weapons were knocked down, and a dangerous situation immediately arose, and Wang Geng didn't hesitate on his side. The magic tools of the 2 people opposite were just ordinary and top-grade, unable to withstand the Scorching Sun Needle talisman. They were beaten back and forth, complaining incessantly. At this moment, 2 screams suddenly came from across the street. Wang Geng turned his head and found that the 2 people who were besieging Cui Yueling had already been killed. After seeing his companions die tragically, Wang Geng and his 2 companions were already terrified and immediately turned around to try to escape. But all of this is too late. Firstly, 1 person was pierced in the chest by the false shadow of Wang Geng's Scorching Sun Needle, and then another person was poisoned to death by Cui Yueling, who had rushed to the scene and separated a cluster of venom from the red mist above her head. Although he had no romantic relationship with Cui Yueling, she had given him the bell-shaped magical tool before, so Wang Geng eventually came to his aid. After collecting the fallen magical tools on the ground and the storage bags of the 5 disciples of the Hua Dao Wu, the 2 discovered a total of 7 spiritual medicines. Wang Geng gave all of them to Cui Yueling, and the latter happily took the spiritual medicines and then gave all the other spoils of war to Wang Geng. After the partition was completed, Wang Geng asked about the other party's experiences in the past few days. Originally, Cui Yueling was transported to the southern part of the forbidden area and never met her fellow disciples. She first collected herbs while killing monsters and other disciples on the periphery, but did not collect a few spiritual herbs. Later, when she entered the central area, she did not gain much. Today, she also happened to meet 5 people from the Huadao fortress. These 5 disciples of the Huadao fortress were obviously here to fish in troubled waters in the forbidden area. They probably only picked some spiritual medicines on the first day, and then formed a team to hide. They waited until the teleportation array was about to start today before walking out. Unexpectedly, they met the lonely Cui Yueling halfway through. Just as they were about to rely on the large number of people to kill and seize treasures, they were ambushed by Wang Geng, who happened to arrive and broke up the formation. As a result, the entire army was destroyed. Afterwards, Cui Yueling had to search for the elixir again. Wang Geng helplessly accompanied the former to 3 more places, but only found 1 purple monkey flower and 1 jade marrow mushroom. Seeing that the teleportation array had been open for some time and was about to close in 1 or 2 hours, some unexpected events occurred and they were unable to leave the forbidden area in time. Wang Geng persuaded the other party to give up their plan to search for spiritual medicine again, and then the 2 of them headed straight to the nearest teleportation array. More than an hour later another whirlwind came, and as soon as Wang Geng opened his eyes, he found that he had returned to the entrance of the forbidden passage. The next moment, another wave of spiritual energy came from behind, and it was Cui Yueling who followed closely behind and also transmitted it. So, the 2 of them returned to the position of the Hidden Moon Sect together in the enthusiastic greetings from the officials of the digital Hidden Moon Sect, and immediately Wang Geng discovered that they were actually the earliest to return from the door. After sitting down, Wang Geng immediately scanned the disciples of his sect. At this point, many disciples from various sects had already returned, with a total of around 30 people, most of whom were dressed in rags, mostly stained and injured, and Wang Geng's clothes were also torn and tattered, with many blood stains splattered on them. However, these blood stains belonged to the demon beasts and the 6 sect disciples he had killed. At this moment, the leaders and managers of each sect are anxiously waiting for the disciples of their respective sects, especially those with fewer returning members. However, this does not include people from the Moon Covering Sect. The Nishang fairy happened to smile and say this to someone, while the Qiong old monster also looked calm and indifferent. The reason why the 2 were so calm was certainly due to Nangong. They just didn't know that even Nangong was almost trapped in a forbidden area and had to go through countless hardships before finally walking out. As time passed, it was gradually approaching the time when the passage was closed. For a long time, no disciples from the 7 schools had come out of the passage, and apart from Wang Geng and Cui Yueling, none of the members of the Moon Covering Sect had returned. As the 2 ancestors in the sect began to change their faces, Han Laoma first walked out of the passage. Soon after, more than 10 disciples of the Moon Covering Sect, including Nangong, also came out together. When the passage was about to close, he slowly walked out towards the old ghost. The disciples who have not yet come out will never be able to come out. This includes Cui Yueling's sister, Cui Yefeng, not to mention how Cui Yueling was sad and shed tears during the process of submitting the spiritual medicine. Wang Geng directly submitted 46 spiritual herbs, shocking the whole audience, while Cui Yueling submitted 18. Just like the original plot, Qiong Guai won a bet against Fuyunzi and Li Huayuan, took the former's blood thread Jiao inner pill and Li Huayuan's promise, and happily left. Meanwhile, the Nishang fairy rode the moon covering divine boat and brought back the remaining 12 disciples to the moon covering sect in the Luhua hall. Cui Zushi was dejected, Cui Yueling wept silently, while Wang Geng returned to his stone tower and fell asleep. During the 7 or 8 day battle between life and death, as well as the tireless search for elixirs, his spirit remained highly tense. Now, he suddenly relaxed and felt exhausted. Wang Geng slept for a day and a night, and when he woke up, Cui Yueling happened to come over and call him to the Luhua hall, saying that Cui Zushi was looking for him. Since practicing with Cui Yueling, this Cui patriarch has always treated him lukewarm and indifferent, neither showing closeness nor estrangement. This is the first time he has been specifically recruited. Yu Ling has talked about what happened in the forbidden area. You saved her life and even gave her 7 spiritual medicines. In this way, Yu Ling can obtain 2 foundation building pills. There is great hope for foundation building, and it is all your credit. To report to my ancestor, Yu Ling and I are dual cultivators, and it is only natural for us to help each other. Upon hearing Wang Geng's answer, Chui Zushi smiled and nodded, appearing extremely satisfied. I heard that you submitted 46 spiritual herbs alone this time, and you should be able to exchange them for 5 foundation building pills. I will inform the steward of the Foreign Affairs Hall, and all 5 foundation building pills will be distributed to you, not a single one will be missing. Upon hearing Chui Zushi's words, Wang Geng was suddenly startled and remembered something he had never thought of before, that is to say, there are also human relationships and worldly wisdom in the cultivation world. Previously, he only wanted to obtain more spiritual herbs in exchange for more foundation building pills, but never thought about how precious the foundation building pills were. As a little cultivator without a foundation, how could he occupy so many spiritual pills at once? 1 or 2 of them would definitely be taken away by someone, and in the end, he would be grateful if he could get 2 or 3 left. Although there is a ridiculous mirror that can replicate elixirs and hardly affect his foundation building, what should belong to him is swallowed up by someone for no reason. Who can be content? With this in mind, Wang Geng quickly bowed to Master Chui and said, "Thank you very much for taking the initiative. In the future, you can speak up for matters that may benefit your younger generation." "Okay, that's all I need from you. I really have something to discuss with you today." Upon hearing the other person's words, Wang Geng's heart suddenly thumped and a sense of unease arose. End of this chapter.